How do you know at the end of 12 months you've hired the right person? You can come across as an expert just by asking great questions. You have to be willing to start realizing what's going on in your head. Whose voice is that? So my mother's used to sit here and every single thing was, you're a failure, you're this, you're that, you're rah, rah, rah. Like literally there was nothing nice. It's gone. I'm already seeing companies trying to replace recruitment with AI. Everybody, full stop, no matter what they do, they need to be sitting up and showing their value to the business.
Katrina Collier,
Glenn
welcome back to the Never Mind the Job Spec podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. Yeah.
I talk to you every other week. I feel like I've never left.
Wow, this is a very different conversation because this is all about you. And now I have historical reference as well, which is the podcast that we recorded in 2020. I have pulled out some quotes that you made at that time, which I think are quite interesting. Katrina Collier, introduce yourself.
So I'm Katrina Collier. I'm best known as the author of The Robot Proof Recruiter to anybody working in recruitment or talent acquisition. And have another book coming, which is exciting. It'll be out in August. Accent, Australian, living in London for the last 22 and a bit years. I do work in, would I call it the recruitment profession?
I think it's more people profession because it's all encompassing, isn't it? It's not just kind of recruiters per se, and we'll come to that.
So everything I do is about improving candidate experience, which to me comes back to the relationship between the in-house recruiters and the managers and leaders. And that's a lovely problem that I really do focus on fixing, be it through books, be it through design thinking workshops, speaking, all those sorts of things.
I'm going to interject there because yes, author, speaker, across 5 continents. Did you make it to 6?
6 in August.
6 in August. Facilitator.
Yeah.
Mentor.
Yes.
Philanthropist.
I don't even know what that word means. It's so big.
Charity. Hope for Justice.
Oh, bless you. Yes.
And we'll come
I'm
to
an
that.
Ambassador for Hope for Justice charity.
Yeah, exactly. And you've been to Uganda twice.
I have, indeed. Huge part of my healing
2016, 2018. I'm going to come back to that.
It's really creepy how much you know about me.
Yeah.
We did work together though.
Exactly that. Exactly that. So this conversation, for everybody that wants a bit of a background, I'm going to do a really accelerated background. So listen to the podcast in 2020. We go through your private education, working at KFC, the motor trade, some stories about...
I actually gave you my proper bio.
Yeah. Moving to the UK, how you got into recruitment. So that is all on the previous podcast.
It's all the same.
This podcast is a look forward. Let's go down that change. From 2020 to now, what are the headline changes for you?
Well, let's see. I mean, I stopped running events.
Yeah.
That was a huge one because they wouldn't allow them to be run online. So that was that. I probably threw the baby out with the bathwater, but whatever. I don't think it's what I should have been doing. It was a great, wonderful thing to do for the community. But as far as my purpose in life, it wasn't. It was a distraction because I lost all my income, of course, like a lot of people. All my best laid plans. So I then took offerings online. So I was running a mastermind there for a while. It's gone quite quickly. Well, I've written a couple of books. I suppose that's probably
there was
why.
A small matter of you traveling to multiple countries, delivering workshops with Sue Ingram.
Did that. That's true.
Yeah.
I've forgotten that. And then, of course, I stopped and wrote. So I wrote my memoir last year and I wrote Reboot Hiring this year. So what I wouldn't have known in 2020 was that I was going to be an author first and foremost.
Ha! First quote. 2020 podcast. My next book will be about self-sabotage.
Okay.
You said that.
That's just not what I wrote about.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, but the kind of almost origin of thinking about a book that wasn't necessarily about kind of recruitment focused. Clearly there was an inkling there. So that's the first of many quotes I'll be throwing back into the mix.
You can throw them all back in my face. It's all good. I say a lot of bollocks.
Into the mix. So you were saying, that the second book is coming up.
Self-sabotage. Interesting.
Yeah. That's exactly what you said. Yeah. I think that might be about where you were on the journey at that time, perhaps.
Actually, I was I can still be good at it, but I'm aware now. than when I'm doing it. So that'll be, I hate doing new business development, for example. So, that would be me not calling somebody or me, forgetting to follow up with someone or just avoiding, because I just feel like, I don't know why, I just find it uncomfortable. But I think because I've been working with a woman called Isabel Gatherer for the last 2 years, who has fully opened my spiritual side. So I've gained this incredible self-mastery that I didn't have when we spoke 4 years ago. And so I would have been like, oh, yeah, I self-sabotage. Now I'd be like, I self-sabotage. What can I do to get around it and get around it? I wouldn't allow it to continue. Much more aware when I'm doing it.
I think that's the beauty of any journey. And I think that'll be illustrated through our conversation. And just kind of bringing it back to, what's happened over the last sort of 4 years. You were sort of talking about Reboot Hiring. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah.
I mean, what inspired Reboot Hiring?
I came into 2022 thinking I've had enough of the recruitment profession, like the space. I've had enough. Nothing's changing. It's just we've somehow forgotten we're humans recruiting humans for humans. And it's just getting worse. The way people are being treated is getting worse. And considering what recruiters have been through in the 20s, I'm quite surprised that that's what they're doing, but that's what they're doing. So I thought, you know what? I want to leave a legacy though. I want to write a book that is for managers and leaders in the business. It is not for talent acquisition. I'm sure they'll read it. I'm sure they'll gain from it, but it's not. I want them to go and throw it at their managers and say, read this, will you? And it's basically to get them to turn up for the recruitment alignment meeting, as I've decided it's now called, to actually articulate who they need to hire properly, how to treat people properly in interviews. I think that actually that was the inspiration from you. So call it interview considerations. It is. And then to stop all the isms and all of the phobias and all the stuff that ends up on the internet creating bad hiring for everybody. And partner. So it's like the book that any recruiter would have wanted to give their manager to get them to play ball. So I was like, okay, I'm going to write that, but I'm going to write my memoir, which I did first, because that's the thing that's going to take me out of the profession. I just know it. I can feel it in my bones.
Really interesting. You mentioned the hiring manager narrative back in 2020 as well.
Okay. Well, it took me a bit.
Yeah.
Yes.
Combined with...
Says Glenn Martin, who hasn't written a book yet.
Yeah. Yeah, and unlikely to as well.
What happened was I actually did start it in late 21, 2022, and then did the workshops with Sue, got that piece of work, which allowed me to stop and actually not work so I could write my memoir, because that took about 3 months of solid writing.
Has the mission changed? All the people that recruit the people, I want them to treat humans better.
Exactly the same. That will never change. So much of that goes back to having been an underdog as a child and, powerless. And what are job seekers and candidates most of the time? Powerless. They're in this opaque hiring process, and it shouldn't be opaque because it never used to be. You used to know where you stood, but now it's just like, I don't know. On the way in, I heard these girls talking about their recruiting process on the train, and I was like, oh dear, don't say anything, Katrina. Don't admit what you do, because it was just awful hearing them talk about the uncertainty, and it's just, it hasn't changed. It just seems to have got worse. And now with the buzz around AI, which is, you just know is going to be put in the wrong spot and just create more drama and more reasons that some poor schmuck going through the recruitment process is getting treated worse, not better.
I think certainly 2023 amplified that kind of pain and disappointment in kind of hiring, because obviously, 2023 was a tough time for everybody. There was a lot of redundancies, a lot of businesses scaling back. There was a, kind of almost like macroeconomic factors that were kind of putting, kind of pressure on certainly the UK economy.
Yeah.
And
well, we had Brexit on top of it. That doesn't help.
Exactly. And I think that just kind of give me your view on kind of 2023, the sort of things that you saw from a kind of personal perspective, business perspective, but a lot of people that were kind of reaching out to you and kind of sharing their stories.
I was so lucky that I had that piece of work, truly, because I just don't know what would have happened, because as you know, the end of 2022 was really tough. What I saw was that all the companies that had overhired, and it was obvious it was happening. I was like, how can you not see what's happening? They'd overfired in 2022. Sorry, downsized. Apparently, I get in trouble when I say overfired. But then they overhired. But who's still in a job? Are the CEOs of all those companies the workforce planners of all those, like, I'm sorry, why are we laying off the TA team again? Why are we laying off the people team, the marketing team, all of the
sales teams as well?
Support, like, you overhired. Why aren't you going?
Mm.
And that's what I saw. But what I also saw, I really hoped when so many recruiters were laid off in 2020 and experienced the other side, that they would go back with empathy and compassion, and I don't see it. And there's been now another circle round and they still aren't seeing it. Like, what's it going to take for the people that recruit people to get what it feels like when they've been through the process? Like, why don't they get it? We are playing with people's lives and livelihoods. Why don't they get that?
So playing devil's advocate on that, when you've been through a kind of traumatic experience and you find some level of stabilization and you find a kind of footing. So case in point, you've been made redundant. You've been out for like, I don't know, 10, 12 months.
Yeah.
You finally get that job. Do you think it's fair to say that perhaps there's a period where you're just like, oh God, I'm just so grateful to be in this job, and you're maybe not as empathetic or thinking about the external kind of experiences of others? You're just like, oh my God, I just need to process this kind of trauma that I've been through, a bit of stabilization, and then maybe I can look to kind of, be more empathetic. I wonder, what your take is on that.
It's funny. I'm thinking of something completely different, of course, because, why would I have a logical answer to what you just said? Maybe I would hope that anybody that's been through that would forever be like, I understand what you're going through. I know what it feels like. I was just there. Gratitude or not for job really shouldn't correlate. One of the things I was thinking
more on the trauma side, and how do you process that?
Well, I think the trouble is mine was repetitive trauma and resilient, and I'm a Gen X, so it's like, whatever. So actually I don't know. So I'm probably the wrong person to ask. You probably need to ask somebody who has been made redundant recently how they felt 12 months in, and do they just, but I was wondering, is the place they're working at making them feel like their job is unstable, so therefore, but surely then that would make them feel more empathy for the other person. Oh gosh, you poor thing, being stuck looking for a job. I feel, I don't know.
But to your point, there is a responsibility for the kind of people and talent team to think about the people.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean, that's your core role and responsibility, to think about people.
Yeah. There was a stat I came across, which, no, it's in Reboot Hiring. I was thinking, is it my memoir or Reboot Hiring? Could be in both, Reboot memoirs about mental health, so, But the trauma, like people getting things like heart disease 10 years after they were laid off and things like that, like the redundancies have a massive impact on our health. Because of the emotional dysregulation, it tends to cause things like autoimmune diseases and heart disease and all this kind of stuff. I will pull that out for you, that piece of information, because it was quite like, wow, that's quite shocking how even up to a decade later. And I was talking to a mutual friend of ours, and she went, actually, that is spot on because of the health crisis she's having now, and was looking at when she'd been made redundant.
Yeah.
So it's like, wow, hadn't correlated the two.
So direct question. Why is it important to teach better practices to hiring managers? Now, it seems like an obvious question, because surely they know what they're looking for.
No, they
know how to recruit, surely.
No, they don't. CVs just fly down from the sky. Because the vast majority, oh my gosh, I shared this stat yesterday. Can't remember what it was.
So if I'm a hiring manager...
82%, isn't it, of managers in the UK alone, let alone the rest of the world, are not trained. Mm-hmm. It was some staggering stat that I shared, that it came from a very reliable source. And it was like, okay, so if they're not trained at all, they're certainly not trained how to hire. Mm-hmm. And the thing is that if you can't, I find it really amusing at the moment, because that whole conversation around, we'll just get rid of recruiters and we'll put AI in. It's like, but that's not going to fix the two massive things that are wrong in the world of recruitment. One, the manager cannot articulate who they need to hire, and people can't write a CV, so they're not matching. Like nothing's matching. And that's where the recruiter comes in, is to actually get the manager to articulate who they need to hire, assuming the recruiter is trained properly, of course, and then understand that people can't write CVs or resumes and struggle with them, and and guide them to get them to match. Technology is not going to fix that little problem.
Okay.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah,
what was the question? Does it matter?
I just want to kind of zone in a little bit. So you called
when Glenn says zone in, God help us.
you called it a recruitment alignment meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool. As a hiring manager, what am I going to experience in that? Other than my experience of kind of the recruitment meeting is I go in, I tell you all of my requirements alongside the job specification. You go get me the person I want.
Apparently.
Is it going to be different to that?
So the thing is that you get those meetings. So I talk to a lot of external recruiters and internal recruiters who don't even get the meeting. Managers refusing to turn up. So this is formally known as the job brief, the intake strategy session, the intake meeting, the kickoff call, right? They all kind of suggest it's short, right? You know, intake, here's like a Pizza Hut order, job brief. All that kind of, and it's like, I want it to be, we're going to align together on how to fill a role. And you've got these poor people out there who don't have the support from their own TA leaders or HR leaders in some cases to be able to push back and say, no, I'm not working on this role without having the meeting. And the reason the meeting matters is the job description is always wrong. The job description is looking backwards. You and I've had this conversation so many times. They pulled it out from a drawer. You heard me speak and say this how many times? They pulled it out from the bottom drawer. It's moldy and it's not right. It was that, Glenn left, so I want another Glenn, but you learnt stuff. And going forward, maybe it's somebody else. So it's that side. But when I say recruitment alignment, it's the agreement of, okay, when do they need to start? That with the vet practice, that's what I did. I showed, when do you need them to start? And we worked it backwards and they realized they should have been hiring 2 months earlier. It's like, so all of that. And then what you're going to do and what they're going to do, booking time out of their diary there and then, really making it a really impactful 45 minutes to an hour so that they save so much time down the line. I think what happens is managers and leaders go, but there's the job description. You've got it on the job description. And the thing is that you don't. There are these things, the little things that aren't on there because they've written, need someone with 5 years of Java experience. Well, that's great. What are they going to be doing? Well, I just need someone with Java. No, but I try selling that in the marketplace. So there's sort of that side. Actually, I love, I quoted Debbie East today. She gave a great question. Like, if one of your family members was coming to work here, what would you tell them that you hate about the place? Something like that. It's such a good question.
That is a very good question.
What would you warn them about? What would you warn them about? And it's things like that. I also recommend to the in-house crew to go and talk to the team and say, what do you think's missing here? And what have you learned since you started here? And get the salesy side so that you can stand out in the marketplace.
It kind of says to me, so two things. One, as you said, the kind of intake meeting, it implies a one-way dialogue.
Meeting.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you've renamed it the alignment
I have
meeting.
From my other book.
Yeah. But typically most kind of recruiters' experiences, it's a one-way kind of conversation. You might bring some research to that particular meeting to kind of help frame the conversation with the hiring manager, whether that the individual kind of takes that information on board or not, But a proper recruitment alignment meeting, it's more of an exploration of, firstly, do we know what we're actually looking for here? Have you, the hiring manager, done your own research?
In the chapter I wrote about that, I was like, okay, here are the questions. So, how do you know at the end, my favorite, which I stole from Steve Levy, of course. How do you know at the end of 12 months you've hired the right person? And I honestly would start the conversation there. I would literally go in and that'd be my first thing, because then they start thinking and then you've won them over. Because they go, oh, Glenn made me think. Oh, really respect him. Because people love to think and to be, oh, I hadn't thought of that. And they're like, they respect you immediately. So, hit them with that question, make them look forward. I've forgotten why I said that. Oh, intake, because why did I say it? Why was I saying that? With such confidence and clarity and no idea.
It was related to the recruitment alignment. I think probably what we're saying.
Genuinely lost my thread. This is the joy of menopause brain. I hope you leave this in the podcast because to me these blurps are the best bit.
Well, everything will be left in like we did last time.
Great.
But I think that the key.
Did I talk about menopause last time? Because I was totally in the throes of it then.
We didn't actually, and I kind of wanted to touch upon that because it's.
That's why my hair's short.
Yeah, the journey. But just to kind of, frame Reboot Hiring, I mean, for those individuals that have read, kind of the Robot Proof Recruiter, they'll know that's very much for the kind of talent acquisition recruitment team. This is...
I know what I was going to say.
Oh, I've teed you up. Go for it.
No, because you were saying, like, go in prepped. And I do want recruiters to always go in prep with market knowledge. And actually, I've given them the questions ahead for them to be ready for the meeting. But I've also said, and if you're not, just tell them I'm not, but let's explore it together and let's work it out. But I suggest things like, let's run a search here and there. Now, am I being unrealistic? Like, I'm really saying all the stuff that a lot of recruiters don't feel empowered to say.
Yeah.
To kind of go, like, well, what's the market? What do you know about the market? What are candidates saying? How unrealistic am I being?
I think it's interesting that, like I say, Robot Proof Recruiter is kind of almost like that really informed co-pilot that you can use as a recruiter and talent acquisition professional. And now you're asking hiring managers to adopt a very similar approach. Hiring teams, hiring people.
Managers and leaders.
You're asking the senior leadership to take accountability for their part in the actual hiring process. And to your point, the teams as well, right? It's not just one individual, hiring based on what they want. It's how does that hire fit into the team, into the business? So it is a lot more complex, and it requires and deserves more input and time from the leadership team.
And also spend more time at the beginning and stop wasting time, resources, stress, interviewing all these unsuitable people, knowing it when you'll see it, all that kind of stuff that's just absolutely crazy that they do. Yeah. Because they're like, oh no, not a meeting with the recruiter. They hate the recruitment. They can pretend to the cows come home that they love it. They don't. There are very few managers out there who actually like hiring someone for their team because they don't know what they're doing, which they're not going to admit to. Because, heaven forbid we admit that I don't know how to do something. But by the way, the reason I keep correcting is the recruiters are in charge of the hiring process. The managers are doing whatever they do. And I think if we stop calling them and giving them this power by calling them hiring managers and just said they're managers and leaders, they don't know what they're doing when it comes to recruitment. My job is to guide them. Suddenly you sit up and you partner. Remember, we're older and we've been around and done this for a while, like 20 years. Yeah. And so it's easy for us. But it's like, what do you mean? I mean, I wouldn't allow half the stuff that I hear.
Yeah.
I mean, bless, I was talking to a girl in India. She's so gorgeous. She had to deal with an Australian manager.
Okay.
And I said, you just have to get a damn sight ruder. I said, you're being too nice.
Yeah.
Tell him to stop fucking around. She looked at me horrified and I went, we really respect that. We respect people who stand up to us.
Yeah.
And I said, unfortunately, from your culture, which is so layered and nuanced and absolutely gorgeous. I mean, there's such beautiful people. But Australians just want to walk all over you because you're not standing up to us. We're really like...
It's a test.
Well, it's not even a test. It's just like you're not being directed. Yeah.
I prefer that more direct approach.
Sue did a piece from the Culture Map, the book, The Culture Map, and she was showing about like the newer languages. So not newer languages, the newer countries. So Australia, America, et cetera. We have very direct. We just don't have time. We had all these people come in from all over the world to create our countries. So we just got rid of the fluff.
Yeah.
Countries like Spain and France, actually, it's very layered and very complicated and hierarchical. And
so you were kind of almost guiding her to be constructively direct.
Yeah, just tell him to stop being a wanker. She's so not going to do that, but it would be great.
Well, we'll check in on that. We'll check in on your LinkedIn post.
Her, actually. She was so beautiful. She's still, still got a job.
Yeah, I think, well, like you said, I think there is... So there's this piece around the kind of psychology of kind of recruiters and talent acquisition people, in so much as it's almost like, stop acting like a service.
Yeah.
Because if you act like a service, you'll be treated like a service. And I know that's really easy to say, given 2023, what we've been through in 2024. Yeah. There is a psychology shift that needs to happen in so much as, promote yourself as a partner, set your kind of boundaries in terms of your expectation of the leaders, and kind of I'll take one of your phrases, kind of almost sit in your power.
Yeah, totally sit in your power.
And kind of really project that. And that will start a kind of catalyst for kind of respect. Like this person is an expert in what they do.
Yeah.
And you can build on that.
Yeah. I mean, you can come across as an expert just by asking great questions. You don't have to have the knowledge. There's this weird, you got to have the knowledge. They're talking to candidates. They can be asking them questions and asking them the dumb questions as well. They can really go, can you help me with this? I have no idea. Because people are actually really lovely and they don't mind helping. So if you're too scared to ask your manager a question, ask your candidate a question and go, what's Java mean? I don't know. Like, is it JavaScript? You're like, literally ask them. Yeah. But I do think and I wrote about this as well. I talk about like the cycle of layoffs has to stop, hiring and overhiring and layoffs, and the mental health of recruiters because of the must-haves.
Yep.
If you're going to go and ask a recruiter to look for a unicorn, they're going to start doubting themselves. And I get the story of someone who applied to speak on my podcast who was saying that she had not the fear of being found out, the other one, imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, you should not have imposter syndrome. If you sat up in your power and literally sit up when you're on those video calls, like sit up, they will notice the difference. They'll think, oh, it's amazing. Don't slouch in your chair. Sit up, eye contact, ask them questions.
Yeah.
And it's just push back.
Yeah.
Don't go hunting unicorns.
Yeah. I think it's really important. So just to kind of frame that off, Reboot Hiring, a release, it's on pre-release now. You can pre-order it, right?
Pre-order, please pre-order. Preferably not from Amazon. Preferably from like Wiley directly. It is released on the 1st of August in the UK and Europe. Sort of depends where you purchase it from in Europe as to where they ship it from. It's bizarre. Yeah. Unfortunately, it doesn't release in the US until later that month. So they don't get those till the 10th of September, which is just rude.
Well, if you've got a friend in the UK, get it ordered.
Yeah, get it ordered to me and I'll sign it and send it to your managers. That's what I'd love to do. I'd love to see it going out to all these managers. And actually, if every recruiter who has an asshole manager messages me, we could like send me books and I'll send them on.
and just for kind of context, you are not just a kind of an author and theorist. You go in and deliver these workshops as well, right? So the book itself was, the foundation of it is activities you've actually done, right?
Oh, for sure.
So it's kind of almost, it's like, I've written about something I've done and can do.
Done it all. Yeah. And I've worked in agency, I've worked in-house. It's very hard to notice the in-house on mine, but I have. I grew a startup from 20 to 70 and with some very challenging leadership, to be fair. And then with the training, I've always been hands-on with teams. So I'm always working with recruiters day to day. But then what I did, of course, like I did with the robot-proof recruiter, was brought in other voices.
Yeah.
I've got 60 other voices in there. Because who am I to write a book about recruitment when I last hands-on recruited so long ago? So I brought in, like, tell me your issues. Let's discuss them.
Well,
but I tell you, it's the book that you just want to hit your managers with. Either nicely or literally across the head. Yeah. I think a lot of recruiters will just be relieved. They'll be like, oh my God, because there's nothing like it out there. I looked.
It's a voice of reason and a voice of kind of like I say, putting power to the value
the broken
of
part.
Yeah.
That I'm already seeing companies trying to replace recruitment with AI. Yeah. And actually, going back to your point with the power, everybody, full stop, no matter what they do, they need to be sitting up and showing their value to the business. So recruiters and HR, get out of your offices and go and talk to people and be seen. Star hires, people don't know they're star hires, which blew my mind. So who have you hired into the company who did $1 million in sales, did a transformation that saved billions, whatever. Know those people. Yeah. So when you're talking to the FD and the FD goes, you're just a cost center. I go, really? Let me tell you about the last 5 people I hired and what they've delivered to the productivity of this company, the bottom line, blah, blah, blah. And they'll go, whoa.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's keep Katrina when we fire everybody else. Right. So everybody needs to start doing this because you're going to start competing with technology. And if there's a way for them to just offload you. I mean, starting with recruitment coordinators, bless them. What can they do instead? How can they help employer branding? How can they help marketing? What can they do instead? Because so much of their job can be automated.
Grow within your role, for sure.
Everybody listening, if you're not a recruiter, please go and show your value.
That's exciting. I'm looking forward to Reboot Hiring. We're going to take a slightly different track now.
Dun, dun, dun.
Exactly. Because part of what we discussed on Nevermind the Job Spec is both people's professional but personal journey. And obviously only as so much as you want to share. But I reflect back.
I'm like an open book, I
reflect back to when we spoke in 2020 and you said that January 2012 was a pivotal time in your life. You just delivered your first training.
Yes. Left my husband.
Yeah, and you just started
house,
your work with Michelle Zelli about 2 or 3 months earlier.
Yes.
So looking back now, does that seem like a long time ago?
No.
No? No. It still feels very, and why is that?
I think because I've just written it all out in my memoir. So I have written out.
Do you mind? Can we explore that?
Yeah. So my memoir is called The Damage of Words. And it is my journey of healing self-hate and gaining self-mastery. When we spoke in 2020, I didn't have self-mastery. I certainly I was definitely full of self-love and probably very self-aware, but I hadn't got that final piece of the puzzle, which has definitely changed me. One, I haven't been ill at all, literally. Well, I had COVID, but I haven't had any of the colds, the flus, anything that's going around. I'm just so healthy, it's ridiculous. And some people think it's because I'm a hermit. It's not. I'm around people. I live in a busy place, but I just don't get sick, things like that. And people just show there's an attitude shift. So I've been on this journey. And it was funny writing the memoir because I realized that I did nothing. So my mum is a narcissist, and it was emotional and physical abuse. Because my mum is a narcissist, I got the gaslighting. You're crazy. It's all in your head. It's not true. You're lying. You're making things up. Blah, blah, blah. Constant. So when I finally worked out that it was child abuse, actual child abuse, which actually I knew when I did the trips. I worked it out in the trips to Uganda because I remember seeing this poster on the wall and going, I had that, and that. And it was all the signs of child abuse. And I was I had 7 of them, I think.
Yeah. Could we just zone in on that a little bit? Because there's part of that journey, that first 2016 when you went to Uganda, and you kind of made mention in our previous conversation around when you kind of walked into the room at the kind of center and just tell everybody what you experienced then.
Yeah, so that was actually after, wasn't it? So I was still accepting it was abuse, actually, now I think about it. Yeah, no, I remember, there were multiple things. So we'd been walking around the slums and we came back with the kids. And because the kids know Hope for Justice, or what was Retrack at that time, and they're trusting and they know that they can come and just get a break from being on the streets. So they can get a hot meal and a shower and just play, literally play with no fear.
Be children, basically.
Be children. Yeah. And it is amazing because you do watch the shields drop. And anyway, with the doors opened and I felt this palpable, you could feel this love from these carers and staff. And I was like, I didn't have that in my house. It was just like, it just went through my head. And then it was, and previous to that, watching the kids in the slums, I'd been watching the bigger take care of the smaller and the older, the younger. And I was going, we didn't have that in our household either. It was really weird what was going through my head. Go back to the centre, go upstairs, and I see this poster and I was like, so it really was child abuse. So I had known it was child abuse. I had sort of accepted, but I hadn't accepted the word per se until 2016. So actually it took me longer than I thought. I might have to go back and edit my memoir. But I remember, so I fell into healing with Michelle in 2011. And I have, while writing the memoir, said to Richard, what did I do? Because I know it was about 5 years earlier that I knew it was abuse. Even if I hadn't accepted the word, I knew it was something dramatic that had impacted my self-esteem. And I knew I hated who I was and I knew I was unhappy. Why didn't I do anything? And Richard goes, I don't know. I said, what was I doing? Like, why didn't I take a step? Why didn't I call someone? Why didn't I get help? I now understand why, because there was a time as a child that we did go to a psychiatrist, I think it was, and I cried out for help and was shut down by, I think, my parents. I can't quite remember, but I remember being shut down. I remember adult won't help, be quiet. Hey, 70s child, what can I say? So it was sort of like, I guess that's why, but the universe intervened and went, here's Michelle Zelli and she is going to crack your armor. And she cracked my armor and peeled the layers, and I worked with her, and then I worked with Laura Borland, and then I worked with other people, and I've literally put in each chapter as to who I've helped, who's helped me to get me to this point.
What did it feel like when you first started working with Michelle Zelli? How strong were those barriers that she had to break down?
Well, the very first session was hilarious because I went to see her about my career. Because I'd lost a contract, big surprise, the emotionally irregulated, forever in inner teen mode. You used to work with me, you know how hostile I could be. somehow lost her contract. Wow, amazing. So I'd gone to her and I remember sitting there saying, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And she was asking me questions. And I said, it's so annoying when I walk through, I don't even know why I said this, by the way. When I walked through Blackheath Village with Lance, my Labrador, at that time, people won't walk around me. It's so annoying. And she let me go a bit and then went, can we just, and she took me back to that point and then started like just peeling layers. And there was really, when I say she cracked my armor, about a few months in, she said, look, I run these NLP weekends, which she doesn't do anymore, but I want you to come. And during that one, this is when she really had to dig deep to get through. And this is probably the most offensive I got the whole time I was working with her, because actually it wasn't that bad. And I don't think it's that bad. And I don't understand why people won't address their stuff. But on this weekend, I don't know what triggered me. And I can still trigger. Like my wound is healed, but I can still trigger. So I know now when I'm triggering though. And I just let rip, like as you've probably witnessed from me in the distant past, full venom, very verbal. And I looked at her and I remember I felt such incredible hatred for her in that moment. But I knew I had to stay. There was something in me that was like, don't leave this room. Don't give up on this weekend. And she chipped away and eventually she got to my inner child. What she was facing was my inner teen. Mm. And Michelle had explained to me that you've got functional adult talking now who's meant to be in charge. But because child abuse kids there's no adult, right? They develop this teenager who protects the inner child when the inner child is scared and fearful. And it's like functional adult's the one that's meant to be there going, hey, gotcha. Anyone who knows me will see me do this. When I put my hand on my chest and it's okay. In my head, I'm going, gotcha, we're okay. And I just let her know and I go calm. Whereas that, I didn't know about that connection. I didn't even, my inner child wasn't even in me initially. Like she was off elsewhere. Not surprising. She'd been neglected. And that was always inner teen, emotionally dysregulated, door slamming, potty mouthed, defense. I mean, I call myself a cactus. I was cactus.
Wow, okay.
I was prickly. Well, I liked you. That's the trouble. Yeah. So you probably didn't see it as badly as others.
Well, this is it.
You need to go and talk to some other former colleagues, and they'll go, "Yeah, she was a prickly bitch."
So just to kind of interject there, I don't remember you like that when we worked together. I think
I just adored you.
I think it was just kind of that situation where, I mean, for whatsoever reason, I saw you as somebody that really knew what they were doing, because you were obviously, kind of you were on the what they classed as the kind of new business floor at the time, and it was like you were leading accounts, and we were part of the kind of business as usual team, what I mean, sort of like house accounts type thing. So what I experienced and what I saw was just somebody that was really very focused on what they were doing.
I guess so.
And took a lot of pride in that.
Yeah.
And those were the moments where I saw perhaps that kind of explosiveness where people just didn't appreciate or match the level of commitment that you expected.
They didn't pay my contractors, God help
them. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I remember that clearly. I remember you digging out like the kind of payments team, just like, mate, you need to pay my contract. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Which was great, because then they'd go and get extensions and get an increase and keep my percentage, because they really respected me for that. But that kind of prickly behavior. But on that weekend, which again is probably the toughest session I ever had with her, she just got through to my inner child and reassured her that she was there to help me. And that was then I was cool. But we used to do things like, so I can't have a conversation with my mother. There's no point. I mean, she looks at me with so much hatred, and it's just incredible. We look incredibly similar. She's got piercing pale blue eyes. And when I last saw her for all of 20 minutes, the hatred it's palpable. It's extraordinary that she feels towards me. And I don't feel anything at all now. Like I've healed it all. But anyway, so because I couldn't physically sit like this and talk to mum, I would call mum in or call dad in, and we would either tap in functional adult, inner teen,
this is a
or inner child.
This is with Michelle.
Yeah, with Michelle.
Okay,
And inner child work to me is the key. And I think if anybody has been through repetitive trauma of any kind, and they're not, by the way, it doesn't have to be physical. It could just be emotional. It could be a coach who is constantly picking at you about your gymnastics or whatever. Inner child work is the key, because once you connect with your inner child, you just love who you are. It's just everything starts becoming calm and yeah. So anyway, I would call mum in and I'd say all the stuff I can't say or couldn't say. A few that I remember because I'm also highly sensitive person, so all of my senses are above normal, but I'm also an empath. Empath you tend to develop to survive your childhood, but I absorb energy. So I've now learned not to, but so I'd taken on so much of my mother's stuff. And I remember this one session, mum sitting there and it was actually my inner teen letting rip. And the next second I was jumping around like a lunatic and Michelle's giving me a cloth and I'm wiping off my mother's toxic energy off my body. And then I'd leave like floating out. And then you're like, that was so good. When's the next session? And you just keep going until there's nothing left, until you found all of the compassion and the kindness to self, forgiven self and forgiven them.
Yeah.
Some people say you don't need to forgive them. I did. I needed to forgive them both.
And this is all...
That's just Michelle, by the way. That's like 8 years after that with other people.
Yeah. And this is all kind of illustrated in kind of damage of words, right?
Yeah.
How was the process of writing?
To that depth. Like, I might talk about some of that, but it's more like this is what an inner child is. Here are signs that... So I brought in the science or the expert voice in with mine.
Yeah.
This is what I experienced and this is what the professionals say. Because I don't have a degree in psychology. And actually I addressed that right in the beginning of the memoir. Yeah. I'm like, who am I to write this? Well, don't worry, I refer to experts,
I'm interested in kind of two things. Firstly, what was the catalyst behind wanting to write that memoir, first and foremost? Because once you've done all that work, you know what I mean? It's kind of like, well, actually, you're in a really good place with respect.
Yeah.
Why would you want to go almost relive it by writing it again? What did you want to achieve by writing that? And what did it feel like writing it?
So let me be really clear. There is exactly one chapter about my childhood.
Okay.
Maybe one and a bit because it's kind of like weaved through so there's stories all the way through. Mm-hmm. But really, I just set the scene of my childhood. I don't talk all the time about, oh my God, woe is me, this is what happened. However, it was really, really healing. But the reason that I wanted to write it is for is it skunk they smoke these days? It smells disgusting. The guys that sit out smoking skunk at 8 a.m. every morning. The people who distract themselves on their phone for hours on end. The people that, all of the...
People that are lost,
Well, all the addictions, all the legal addictions, physical addiction, like sport. You can be absolutely exercise addiction. I'd love addiction. So if all these people that are distracting themselves from I could heal what's going on. So there's that side, there's that. I want to demystify the healing process. Like I've just started to with you with one thing and then there's like all the weird and wonderful stuff I've done like past life and spiritual and angels and I've written it all out. So I wanted to do that, but the big one for me was this realization that I sat for 5 years. Okay, I agreed it was abuse. Mind you, you've just thrown my timeline, but whatever. A bit. I still talk about that though, so maybe I haven't thrown my timeline. But I sat. Why didn't I do anything?
Why didn't you do anything?
Yeah, so I want people. The whole point of it is to get people to take one step.
Yeah. Do you know why you?
I don't know. That's what I said. I called Richard and said, what was I doing? I fell into healing. Now I look back and go, gosh, I wish I'd started earlier. But I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to start. This is actually probably the hardest thing, realizing what's going on in your head. Whose voice is that? So my mother's used to sit here and every single thing was, you're a failure, you're this, you're that, you're very, like literally there was nothing nice, literally right here. So no, it's gone. Obviously, I now hear my guides instead, which is nice. There's always some weird chatter going on in my head, but it's more a kind voice. Yeah. And you have to, it's really weird, funny. I often have really negative stuff going on in my head when I'm washing the dishes. I've no idea why. So I'll be like, I'm washing the dishes and suddenly I'm thinking about what an asshole I am or whatever. And I'm like, hang on a minute, what? And then I will take my thoughts straight to my dog. So I take it to Banjo and I'll think about him because then I immediately go to love. And it's becoming consciously aware of well, hang on, whose voice is that? Is that me? Do I really mean that? Would I actually say that to somebody? Would somebody say that to me and I'd accept it? And that's actually probably the hardest part of the entire process. So reconnecting with your inner child is wonderful because it makes you aware when you are about to trigger. Sometimes you don't know. I have triggered recently, not known. Most of the time you're aware. So that's great. You can immediately calm yourself. But the other is, what is going on in my head? Why am I thinking that? How is that serving me? Is it mine? Laura Borland was great. She's like, is this of you or for you as well? Is it somebody else's energy? Have you been around somebody negative that's made you feel shit? Like am I meant to swear on this thing?
Swear away.
Swear away. It's too hard. Sorry, sensitive ears. But that's the other one as well. If you're around people who are making you feel bad because you're absorbing all their energy or they vibrate low.
So the damage of words, and it sounds fascinating because ultimately, again, kind of what you've created is you've drawn in other contributors to this. So it becomes, a kind of, it becomes a bit of a kind of co-pilot and guide to people to perhaps take that first step and maybe to kind of take some sort of action or at least start to think. Step. Yeah.
So what I didn't want it to be, so I've just secured an agent, so I'm so excited. So I know it's taken a lot. It's so amazing. Approaches Wiley, has the contract in 4 days for a second business book. But do you think, because I'm not famous. I'm famous in the world of recruitment. Don't think that counts. And so therefore it's like memoir. So it's, and then the first thing she said was, is this a self-help book? And I went, no, I'm not a professional. And I also haven't set out, if you follow this formula, you'll feel like this. Yeah. I wrote, I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. And then I also told a couple of other stories. So Laura Borland, she was the first one that made me really understand energy. And she's the big sit-up energy. Like, don't do anything. If if it doesn't make you sit up and buzz, the answer's no. If it makes you slouch, the answer's yes. If you sit up and buzz, the answer's yes. If you slouch, it's no. Yeah. Like she taught me that. Anyway, I looped back in, I hadn't spoken to her in 8 years or something. Yeah. And she's gone a completely other path and open spiritually. And we both ended up at the same place. But so I was like, I don't want a formula.
Yeah.
But what I wanted was, by writing out everything, including all the past life and the weird and the wonderful, was somebody might get to that point and go, do you know, I feel like this is old as well. I'm going to go and dig into that. That sounds really intriguing to me. Others will be like, that's bullshit and throw it aside, and that's fine. Mm-hmm. I don't mind. I think what'll happen is people will read as far as they need to read. Yeah. And that could be to the last word and it could be halfway.
That's amazing.
So they might pick it up again later.
Do we have a timeline now that you've got an agent? Or is that just it's like
she's
early
on
doors?
So I've got some beta readers who are going through that I just need their feedback from to help attract a publisher. She said it helps that I have other books.
Yeah.
I just know, I can feel it in my bones. This is going to take me out of the profession and it's going to the recruitment profession and heal so many people. I can feel it.
Amazing.
It's powerful.
That's really amazing. And it's interesting. Like I say, we come back to 2020 and you may not have articulated it in that way, but you had an inkling that your next book would be about something different to recruitment. And
well, actually it was, but they're coming out in different order.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And at the time I asked you, I said, what advice would you give yourself for the next, I think we talked about re-recording in 5 years. So we're a year early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we did. And you said I would advise myself that change is coming and be comfortable with that. I would take care of the dialogue going on in my mind, which you just touched upon there. And I think for me, we kind of drew out some kind of key things like just human connection, passing on knowledge. So I wanted to ask you what advice you would give yourself for the next 24 months, the next 2 years.
Yeah.
Let's shorten that timeline.
It's funny when you say the human connection, I think we're losing it. Like the ability to jump on a Zoom call and all that, it's wonderful. When I started working remotely in 2009, it wasn't like that. But what I see with my memoir is I see people, I literally see it in people's hands. And I've written that in there. Like I pictured this in your hands. I see them reading it and I see their light lighting up, their soul. They're remembering that they're a soul having this human experience. And I see this happening. And then I see them lighting up people around them as they start to heal. And they go, oh my God, I'm going to go and sort stuff out. Actually, maybe I don't have this. Maybe I have this. Maybe, maybe I could actually feel better. Maybe I don't have to cope with life. Maybe I don't have to deal with anxiety. And that's what I see. And that's how the connection's going to occur. I feel like we have this big dark energy just circling the planet, almost taking over. And the light needs to just go person to person to person to person. And that's what I see. What's my advice? Just roll with it, because it's going to be an incredible journey. I see this book everywhere, and I'm not the only person that does. Others who are very gifted, psychically, just see it everywhere. And I see me having the opportunity to encourage people to please just take that first step. If you aren't happy with how you feel about yourself, there is so much help. Unfortunately, the NHS cannot help. It's overloaded, but there are so many different options, from books through to, super, super expensive people. But you might have to not buy the new pair of shoes. You might have to pay for a session. You were just talking about going to physio. We'll pay for physio, but we won't pay for our mental health. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to bring you back to the advice you would give yourself for the next 2 years.
Oh, did I not answer that?
Is more
just
change?
Roll with it.
Is more change coming?
Huge change is coming for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. This memoir is going to change my entire world.
What about moving? We were talking before we started recording.
I know.
You were
I've got the itch to move.
Yeah.
I think I like having a little house project.
Yeah.
If I wasn't doing any of this, I would be a DIY queen, which I didn't know until I bought my flat. And wow, I touched every single square inch of that place. Obviously, I got the plumber in to do the bathroom, the ensuite,
as you should.
As you should.
Yeah.
The kitchen I'd already had done, but everything. I laid floors, I painted, so I'm itching for a reno project.
Yeah.
I think I really, really enjoy doing that in combination with someone to do the plumbing.
Yeah, of course. Always important, folks.
And the
get
tiling.
A professional. Get a professional to do the plumbing.
For the bathrooms and the kitchen. But that, I love that. Taking something that's like old, and probably to be fair, it's probably like my healing journey. There's something old falling apart. Let's fix it. It'll be the memoir that changes.
Yeah.
You'll see. Let's have this conversation again in 5 years.
Yeah, well, I was going to say,
3.
Shorten the timeline for 2 years, because I think it's going to happen quite rapidly.
I do as well. I think, I've got a few lofty ideas of what's going to happen, and it's...
Yeah, and I think it's kind of one of those things where, for me, sort of having been able to kind of, be your friend on this journey over the last 20 plus years.
You've had to listen to all my lunacy.
Well, I don't see it that way, but it's kind of...
Let's talk about angels.
Yeah. I'm an open-minded individual. You know what I mean? I can definitely listen. But I think it's been fantastic to sort of be, kind of party to that journey. You, as I always maintain, you want the best for your friends.
Yeah.
And you want them to kind of achieve the things that they want to achieve. You want to see them happy. And I can definitely say to you that I've seen that kind of journey. I've seen that journey you've been on. You know what I mean?
You have, actually.
And it's kind of, it's really, so if anybody was thinking about kind of like the damage of words and, well, will it help me? If it fuses the knowledge and experience you've had over the last kind of 20 years into that book, I would say it will definitely have a positive impact on individuals, because I know one thing to be true of you: you are always honest.
Yeah.
Always honest.
Because I have a narcissistic mother.
Yeah, and that authenticity.
It's like my top value. Yeah.
That authenticity comes through in everything you do, and certainly the books that you write. Because, like I say, you're not there going, I'm the sole author of the Robot Recruiter, et cetera, et cetera. Reboot Hiring. You're very clear on your contributions and giving credit to those that are kind of contributing to it. So I think back to that point around the damage of words, I'm excited to read it.
I think the big thing, actually, when you ask about like some of the motivation behind it, is my sister won't look at our childhood. She's terrified. And it's Pandora's box, and it's pushed down, and it's impacting her health and her mental state. She's one example, like, of one person I just want to read and go, okay, so it's not that scary. Because the funny thing is, once you start taking off all of the layers that we've put over our trauma, the trauma is really quite the size of a pillbox, but we've layered it up so big we think it's the size of a mansion, and it's not. And that's what I really wanted to get through. And then I wanted to talk about the spiritual side and the weird, the woo-woo as people call it, because there are so many healers in that space who I want to also step into the light. So I have high hopes for just how much healing it could share in the world. So there you go.
That is a beautiful way to end the podcast. Katrina Collier, thank you so much for coming on.
Glenn Martin.
And sharing your journey with us. It's been amazing.
You're welcome.
Thank you, friend.
Thank you.